All right, guys, welcome back to another video. If you're new here or you have been watching the videos and haven't subscribed and you enjoy the content, make sure to hit that subscribe button. So 2023 for Xbox has been a great year in terms of their game releases. And we can all look at the body of work that they've put out with games like Starfield and Hi-Fi Rush. And it's been a phenomenal year in terms of content that gamers on Game Pass and the ecosystem in the subscription get continuous games throughout the entire year. Now, obviously, there were misses like Redfall, where at launch it was terrible, but they put out a new update which has fixed a lot of the issues with that game, and people have been really enjoying it more after the update has been put out. And when it comes to the Game Awards that happened on December 7th, Xbox did get recognition for a number of stuff, from Hi-Fi Rush to Forza Motorsport taking home awards, not just being nominated. And then they also had Starfield nominated for Best RPG, but obviously it didn't win that one. So there was some recognition for the great year that Xbox had in terms of game releases. And it is continuing here, but this time is with the BAFTAs, as there is a major amount of games here that have been listed for Xbox in terms of nomination. This is the long list for the 2024 BAFTA Game Awards that was revealed. And there are multiple games by Xbox first-party studios that made the list. You have Hi-Fi Rush that has 6 nominations: animation, artistic achievement, audio achievement, family game, music, and new intellectual property. And Starfield has 3 nominations for narrative, new intellectual property, and technical achievement. So lots of recognition there for Starfield. Forza Horizon 5, which came out in 2021, which is still extremely popular. I believe it surpassed 35 million players recently. Got nominated for Evolving Game, which I think makes a ton of sense. Forza Motorsport got nominated for multiplayer. Sea of Thieves, which has been just an absolute success from Rare. Something that I don't think they expected to be as big as it is today when they first launched it, I believe back in 2018. And it was pretty bare back in 2018. I played it and I enjoyed it, but there just wasn't enough there. And they've just gone all out, adding new stuff, adding single player campaign, all this type of thing to Sea of Thieves. A phenomenal game now. It also got nominated for Evolving Game. Diablo 4 got 4 nominations for artistic achievement, multiplayer, music, and narrative. And Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 got 3 nominations for audio achievement, multiplayer, and technical achievement. And honestly, I mean, we saw a lot of the reviews specifically for the single player campaign, which I agree that it was not a great campaign, but the audio and the graphics, even with the length of the campaign aside, are still phenomenal, top notch in, I think, all of video games when you really listen to the work that they do in there. And then, of course, the multiplayer, I've really enjoyed Modern Warfare 3 multiplayer, so I'm not surprised that I got nominated for that. So we'll see how Xbox does from all of these nominations. I'm sure I'll take home a bunch of awards, but it's been a great year for Xbox games, for Xbox first parties, and just putting out content that people want to play, and they are being recognized across the industry for their successes. Okay, let's jump over here and let's talk about The Last of Us Online, Last of Us Part 2 Online, Factions 2, whatever people are going to want to end up calling it. The game was canceled, and we know that. And we know that's a huge miss and a huge fail from Sony and from PlayStation for a number of reasons. I mean, they promised it before the release of The Last of Us 2, and I think people were excited knowing that if they were to pick up The Last of Us 2, they would be able to jump in to a brand new multiplayer experience. I really was interested in what they were going to end up doing with The Last of Us Part 2's online features. Now, we know the whole story where they removed it from actually being released with The Last of Us 2, and then they came out, I think it was the Game Awards or Summer Games Fest. You had Neil Druckmann and his crew, and it's basically coming out and telling people they've had to remove it completely from that game and its own online world because it's so ambitious and stuff. And then to now where it has ended up being canceled. So there was a lot of development, a lot of time going into this game, going all the way back to 2018 when we first heard about it. And we actually have a screenshot of the menu screen, so you can kind of understand what they were going for here with The Last of Us Online 2. Here it is. And you can see here, lobby, study, whatever that means, bunk, whatever that means. And there's also a battle pass and a store. And the mode here that they have is Survivor Solos BR. So I'm guessing this was going to be kind of like a battle royale game mode where you're just trying to survive and outlast the other person. A lot of people look at this now and they think they're happy that this didn't come to fruition because people hate the battle passes and people hate the stores. But I really think that has a lot to do with just kind of coping with the fact that this game did get canceled. For me, it would have been better for this game to come out. We see the whole narrative deflection here. A lot of PlayStation fanboys right away were like, this is a good thing. It means Naughty Dog is going to be able to focus on single player games going forward. When really the situation is Naughty Dog is a big studio. They absolutely could be focusing on both multiplayer and single player stuff, and then providing that content to everybody on PlayStation and giving people just more content. But instead, this game just ended up being a failure, and they weren't able to release it. And their deflection is now they're only going to be focusing on the single player style things. They just obviously had a product here that wasn't good enough to be released, and Sony did not want to sink any more resources into it. And I also think the whole thing with Sony's margins shrinking, and they know they need to be able to make money in other ways, they didn't want to lose any more money within making this Factions 2 online multiplayer game. But I still think PlayStation needs multiplayer, and I still think they need some sort of games as a service to provide more revenue for them to be able to focus on their major single player games. I don't think this will be the last time that we hear or see a games as a service game being developed by PlayStation. They're going to be putting out stuff, but now obviously we don't know what the next one on the horizon is, other than, yes, Bungie's working on stuff. There was also that Horizon game that there was rumors, I think, of like an MMO or an online style of game. So that could be it as well. But we will see. I feel like people looking at this and being so happy that they cancel it is just not admitting that they would have probably liked to see what happened here, and is never going to come to fruition now. Let's jump over here. This one breaks my heart a little bit. And this has to do with the Timesplitters coming back. We know that Free Radical was going to bring back Timesplitters, but they were a part of the Embracer Group, and then the Embracer Group went and they bought a bunch of companies, a bunch of developers, and then they started selling off developers and firing people and closing down studios to reduce their debts. And Free Radical was one of the casualties of that. And with that meant the death of Timesplitters, that it probably will never come back at this point unless somebody goes in there and tries to save the IP, a bigger company going in there and trying to buy it off of the Embracer Group. But we now have some screenshots of the game that they were working on to be the reboot of it. So kind of breaks my heart, because I would have loved to have seen this game. I loved this game back in the day when it first came out. But we see here art for the Untitled Timesplitter project that Free Radical Design had been working on has started to surface on the internet thanks to former employees. And you can see graphically what they were going for, some of the assets that they were going for. And again, very sad, because this was something that I think could have been really, really cool, and a lot of nostalgia for people who played them back in the day, and then being able to introduce people to these games that people were playing during the GameCube and the PS2 and the Xbox era. So here are the weapons that you can see the designs are going for. There's some more landscapes and stuff, and then the characters and some more assets. So super cool there. And we have another one here. See what this one is, and you can see this is a deeper look at the characters that they were going for, the designs that they were going for. And I would have loved to have seen this in action, but obviously that's not going to happen. And then we have this here from ArtStation, where you can see just kind of the different settings with snow and the increase in the overall fidelity of how this game was going to look. So very sad that this is the case, but it is what it is. And maybe, just maybe, somebody out there will go and pick up the Timesplitters IP and actually bring it back. All right, let's talk about Baldur's Gate 3 on Xbox, because it did launch, and we remember that Baldur's Gate 3 won Game of the Year, and Swenvik made a joke that he was supposed to announce it was releasing on Xbox, or that it released on Xbox, and he forgot to do that, and not really fault of his own, because he was getting kicked off the stage right away after winning Game of the Year. But we have Very AFK here, who is the director of publisher Larian Studios, saying, shout out to the Xbox players who put BG3 in the #1 spot. It does mean a lot to see you guys buying the game, having waited so long. You never know how these things are going to go, so it means a lot. And I'm not surprised, because Xbox essentially is a home of RPGs with all of their first party stuff. People on the Xbox console love RPGs. So this was a huge game that was missing at launch because of the parity stuff with the Xbox Series S that they were finally able to get over and get rid of the couch co-op so they could release this game on Xbox before the end of the year. A lot of people were excited for it. It is game of the year. I'm excited for it. I haven't played it. I will be jumping into it at some point. So not surprising to see it do very well on the Xbox platform. But there is a little bit more to this story because Larian Swanvik was interviewed by IGN. And IGN asked the question about Baldur's Gate 3 on Xbox Game Pass. And if the game was on Xbox Game Pass, the way the question was actually worded made it sound like the game was on the service, so it didn't really make any sense. But here is his response to the fact that this game will not be coming on to Xbox Game Pass. They say here, we made a big game, but I think there's a fair price to be paid for that, and I think that that is okay. We don't charge you any microtransactions on top of it, so you get what you pay for. Upfront, it's a pretty big meaty game, so I think that should be able to exist as it is. That is what allows us to continue making other games. So basically, this game will never be coming to Xbox Game Pass, and the reason behind it is because it's a big game. There's no microtransactions and all that stuff, and that's completely okay. I think if you make a game that you believe that you want people buying this game at $70 a pop, you don't want to be taking a deal for Game Pass where obviously they would be getting a lot of money from Microsoft and Xbox to be able to do this, and it would probably help offset a lot of their costs. But if that's not the way that developer wants to go, that's absolutely great. That's completely okay. The interesting thing here, though, is saying things like that is a big game and that there are no microtransactions, insinuating that all games on Game Pass have microtransactions or are smaller games, which obviously is not the case. If you go through this service, there are a ton of single player games that have none of this, are massive, and drop into the service all the time. And the other thing is, I feel like a lot of people forget that Baldur's Gate 3 was in pre-release or in preview for like 3 years before it launched in 2023. So they already had a great understanding of how many people were interested in this game and how big it was potentially going to be a launch, because tons of people had bought in to the preview for the game. I wonder just maybe if the amount of people that bought the preview was not nearly as much as they thought it was going to be. I wonder if that would have had any effect on potentially taking a deal to get into one of these bigger subscription services like a Game Pass or even a PlayStation Plus. Maybe not, maybe it would have had no effect at all, but I feel like that could have potentially played a role in it. Either way, Game of the Year looks incredible. I am definitely going to be picking up, buying it at the price on the Xbox store and playing it. I can't wait because, I mean, it looks like there's so many things that can happen in this game with all the choices and everything like that. But if you were ever expecting this game to come to Xbox Game Pass, don't. It's not coming. And I don't think we'll ever see a time really in the future that it does make its way there. All right, let's talk a little bit about Forza and PlayGround Games. We have this here from Timur222 saying, from PlayGround Games financial statements for 2022, the company continued development on Forza Horizon 5 with monthly content releases, which have been very successful. Development on Fable continued. The employee count grew from 316 to 358 in 2022, plus a bunch of other data here. So PlayGround is thriving, and it's like we almost forget that they're also working on Fable, which is going to be an absolutely massive game. They have one of the best games of Forza Horizon 5 that's continuously successful. Player counts are breaking records, and they're also working on Fable, which is going to be a single player experience, something completely different than what they've created before. And even with all of that, they are growing and they are doing well as a studio. And this is the exact contrast as to what just happened at Naughty Dog. You look at PlayGround, you look at Naughty Dog, they're working on two major games as a service, which is Forza Horizon 5, and they're working on a huge narrative single player experience with, it's going to be probably a huge budget to create this new Fable game. So they're able to do both, but I believe Naughty Dog has like 400 employees, so even more employees than PlayGround Games. And they're saying they can't focus on both. And that, I think, shows the difference in the mentality and difference in just what is going on with these studios. People don't focus on the fact that there could be some more happening here at Naughty Dog and more happening at PlayStation for them to actually go out and cancel a game they've been working on for years, and the excuse being because they can only focus on single player games. Doesn't really make too much sense, but we'll see what's up their sleeve and what other games that they do have in development. But for PlayGround, excited to see what happens in 2024. Are we going to see more Fable? I have a feeling we are going to, and hopefully we'll be getting that relatively soon. But I will end the video there, guys. If you did enjoy this video, hit that thumbs up. If you are new here, hit that subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.
Thank you.